You've eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit, but your feast is nearly over.
This is not my home. It's an operating table. And I'm the surgeon. Why aren't you laughing?
From this moment on, none of you are safe.
Welcome to the Batman Book Club, a podcast exploring the Dark Knight Library. I am your host, Ryan Lauer. The Batman Book Club is a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network, hosted by Batman on Film. Just go to batmanonfilm.com, click on podcasts, and you will scroll down to the Batman Podcast Network that has a whole list of other Bat-related shows that also like to dive into other nerdy subjects we all love to frolic about in our free time. The Batman Book Club is also on Patreon. If you like what's going on with the show and you want to help support the show, keep the generators running in the Wayne Manor study, just go to patreon.com/thebatmanbc. Thank you for listening to episode 113, Batman and the Monster Men. Now joining me and returning to the show from Ramey's Reviews, it's one Micah Ramey. Hey, Micah, welcome back.
Hello, Mr. Lauer. Thank you so much for having me back. It is a pleasure to be
Absolutely.
here.
Yes.
On the Batman Book Club.
I'm glad you could join me here this evening to record at your favorite time of the day.
My favorite time of the day. I don't know why I said that about 7:30. I just, it's a good time.
Yeah, 7:30 at night. I mean, I'm looking outside. I've got the window open. There's a pond with a fountain. It's a perfect temp out and everything. So it's hard to argue that this is not a good time of day. So I appreciate you picking this time. I like it.
It is a good time of day. It's 7:30. The sun still has not set yet, but it's not necessarily too hot. It's cooling off.
Yeah.
And if I look out my window, I can't see from here, but if I step to the side slightly, I can see the Washington Monument, a few other cool things in DC. Wow. So, you can just look out and see some history. Not too bad. Not a bad time.
Meanwhile, I look out my window, I see another building here in Indiana, and that's as beautiful as it gets. But that's okay. It's a nice 7:30 in a June summer evening.
Summer evening. It's summer like the middle of summer, right?
Yeah. Sure. I don't know. I haven't paid attention to that really.
Me either.
Been quite a while. But anyways, it's fun because this is our first time recording since you and I have met in person. We both know that we are real human beings.
Yes.
We have met. We have eaten in front of each other. We have watched a Batman movie together. Some serious bonding a couple months ago.
That's as strong as the Batman bonding can get. I don't know how you can top that, but I'm sure we can find a way.
Yeah, I don't know what else you could do, but yeah, that's a hell of a time, and it's kind of fun though. The Bat Boys that I've been recording since March, and it's like, hey, this is the first time since we actually met each other. Hey, and then there's some people coming up down the road that it's like, hey, we actually met each other in person. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah, that whole BOF watch party was awesome. Like,
it was
just meeting everyone was incredible, and I had no idea like how excited everyone was to see me for some reason. I'm like, I'm here for all of you. Like, it was amazing.
Peter Vera was ecstatic to meet one Micah Ramey, aka Deathstroke. Like,
apparently
Deathstroke somehow.
Yeah, like I almost talk to that guy every day, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, fans of Pete Vera out there. I know he's listening. That guy has been a menace on the Facebook page, on Twitter, the messages he sends me, but he makes my day almost every day. He really does. Love the guy. He's hilarious. Just keep up what you're doing, Pete, please.
We got the Peter Vera experience when we were in Texas, and it did not disappoint. It exceeded all expectations, and
it really did.
I think he goes through his cycles. So this is how you know sometimes it's just crazy to think that Twitter isn't like a dumpster fire all the time, but there's times where I feel like it's not a dumpster fire, and that's when Pete is the biggest rascal. And so it's just a cycle. He goes after Garrett, he'll go after me, and then you become a member of the Oox's fan club. I
feel like we all serve a purpose in his like troll life. Like he makes fun of Dick Shoes and his mashed potatoes and all of his other nonsense and his Star Wars takes, and then he uses me to be a part of all these Oox's fan clubs that I had no intention of being a part of. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Peter Vera. ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
He's got a big fan corner here on the Batman Book Club. Since basically, I mean, I don't have a co-host, but if I did, it would probably be him because he's on a lot. So, yeah, there you go. Shout out to Peter Vera.
Yeah. Shout out.
And shout out to Batman and the Monster Men. I think let's get to talking about Batman and the Monster Men. How's that sound?
Okay. Sounds good to me.
So the story was released in 2006, written and illustrated by one Matt Wagner. It was released in physical issues, digital. Now it's available digital issues. It was collected in a trade paperback. It's on DC Universe Infinite, and it was collected in a hardcover, Legends of the Dark Knight, Matt Wagner. And that book is available on my favorite app of all time, Hoopla. Yeah, and it's part of the Dark Moon Rising series from Matt Wagner, which we'll get into that here in just a second. So for this episode recording, Micah, which version do you have? Did you read? And all that good stuff.
So I believe it to be one of the original versions of the entire series when it compiled all 6 issues together. And do you want to get into like why I chose the book too? I just kind of want to segue into that as well.
You want to segue right into it? You want to skip? Okay, breaking rules. I like it. You are Deathstroke. It's your world. Okay.
It was just fresh on my mind. Well, I can't remember which one I have because I don't have it with it personally. It's back at my parents' house, like tucked away nicely. So whenever I eventually move back to Texas, I'm in Maryland currently, I'll have it on the shelf somewhere so then I'll know for sure. But I remember I chose Batman Ego. That was our first episode because it was fresh on my mind and the Batman was coming up soon. So I thought it'd be an interesting discussion. For this one, Ryan, I started contemplating and meditating. I'm like, what's like the first Batman like graphic novel I remember or series I remember reading? And the first thing I thought of was Monster Men. And I believe it came out to me in 2006. I was born in 97, so I was still relatively young into reading. Essentially, I've been reading that long. But I remember my dad, everyone knows Bill Ramey, giving me this. And it was actually signed by Matt Wagner as well, which is also.
The book was? He gave you a book signed by him? Wow.
Yeah, he gave me a book signed by Matt Wagner.
Look at that guy.
Yeah, super cool. I thought it was awesome. I just wanted to read Batman comics. So I remember reading it to completion and really enjoying it. And I haven't honestly read it since. So getting back to it was a lot of fun and very nostalgic for me. So
wow.
Yes.
Well, you kind of answered all 3 questions.
Okay.
So
cool.
I'll go one by one. The version I read is the trade paperback, the first collected trade paperback of Batman and the Monster Men.
Great cover.
Which on the spine, which actually I've looked this up and I feel like this trade is it's hard to come by now and it's expensive if you want to buy it. I'm really curious why like it seems like it's a story that's really beloved by fans, and yet they didn't do insane reprints of the paperback. They didn't do like a collecting all of the Dark Moon Rising into one hardcover or anything. I mean, once I think it was in it might have been last year. You know, these past couple of years all blend together. But the Legends of the Dark Knight Matt Wagner book, that was like the first time that had been reprinted and collected. No, that was 2020. There we go. That was released in 2020. Yeah, it's the first time it's been collected and reprinted since the original trade, which I think is so crazy because, you know, DC, a business wants to make money, right? So just keep look at the freaking Long Halloween. They're on their 15th collected printing now or something. And this is one of those books that I just feel like it would continue to sell and people would want it. And I mean, looking at the Legends of the Dark Knight Matt Wagner collection now on Amazon, a used version I think is $70. This trade is $50. I bought it for $14.99 in 2006.
Yeah, I
I'm
guess
very
I
happy
really,
I did.
Yeah, didn't also mention I just downloaded like the Kindle versions off Amazon because all I saw on there were like used copies as well that were up there around the prices you mentioned, like 60, 70, 80, $90. So I was like, yeah, I'll just download. I think it was like $2 each. So I just
Yeah.
downloaded them and read through them on just like a Kindle application on my laptop, which isn't the way I like to read comics. Obviously,
Yeah.
if I had it in my hands, I definitely would have read it. But I mean, it doesn't distract from the great story of Batman and the Monster Man at all.
Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of blows my mind that there aren't more reprintings of that. But digital, yes, digital is. I mean, DC Universe Infinite, and then buying it on Comixology. That's your easiest and best bet to go now, and most inexpensive. But I'm sure if you're listening to this, you probably have a version somehow because it is a beloved Batman story. Now, as far as when did I first? So I'm assuming when your dad gave it to you, the collected trade, which is what I just showed you. This is what he gave you.
Yes, exactly.
The first 6 in 1. Okay.
Yep.
Signed. That was in 2006.
I believe so.
So that was probably the first time you read it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Got to make sure get these facts down. No fake news here. Nothing but facts. I think I bought this in like 2006.
Okay.
Because once I moved down to the city I'm at now to go to college, I came from no comic book shops to there being like 3 or 4 in the area. And I had money because I was working. I also had student loan money. So I was starting my archives of Batman books. And I came across, because it was new and released, it was like, hey, Batman book, mine. I know I don't have it. So that was the first time that I read it, and probably just like in one freaking sitting, because it's such a, I mean, I know it's 100 and let's see, this is 144 pages. Damn, that time flies reading it too. Like it feels kind of continuous. Like there's not really okay, this is a good point to stop. I'll pick it up again. So you interpreting the question of why Batman and the Monster Man, Micah, it's because it's nostalgic. You haven't read it since you got it the first time. So you thought, what better time to, because actually you told me that down in Texas. I was like, bringing you back on. You were like, I want Batman and the Monster Man. And I said, yes, sir. Nobody's called it. Surprising. This is episode 112. It still blows my mind sometimes of books that haven't been covered yet. And yeah, episode 112. And here we are finally doing Batman and the Monster Man.
Yeah, I'm an incredibly lucky guy because it was the first one that came in my head. And I was like, there's someone has had to do it 100 plus. And you're like, nope, you got it. Whenever I'm available, I'll let you know. And I'm like, oh, let's go.
I dare someone to try and take this book from you.
Yeah, I was going to hunt them down and just deathstroke them if it actually happened. Like, that sounds really inappropriate when I say it like that as a verb.
Oh,
but,
boy.
Well.
Not cutting it, though. People need to know how serious you are about this. But anyways, as I said, so it even says on the top, like a top banner of this trade, and even on the spine, it says 1. There's a follow-up to this called Batman and the Mad Monk. Also, Dark Moon Rising, and that says 2. Together, it is one 12-issue story that Matt Wagner was actually initially, he put this on his Twitter. He's kind of, I feel like he's pretty new to Twitter. He just came on earlier this year. And if you don't follow Matt Wagner on Twitter, I highly recommend you follow him on Twitter, because he and one Sir Kelly Jones, they're both pretty, like, they signed up for Twitter this year, and they are just dropping images of their art, like in sketch and inked stages and everything, and like cool little notes about that piece and stuff. And Matt Wagner's, he was doing that, and I'm pretty sure he mentioned in one of these about he didn't envision breaking it up. I think he either wanted all 12 to just come out as like one book, or he was just going to do a 12-issue miniseries. And then it got broken up into, and I think it was just going to be Dark Moon Rising. Track him down to find out for sure on that. But yeah, it's kind of under that banner of Dark Moon Rising, of in a period between Batman Year One and the Man Who Laughs, early Batman. And I love that setting. I think you could probably guess that just by how Batman looks on the front, the style of his suit. But then as soon as you get into the story, there's there's little nuggets that kind of tip you off that this is really early on in his career. Like, you see in a newspaper where Batman's still kind of like mysterious, and that there's a Red Hood stopped, and you hear it's Captain Gordon, in which we learned at the end of year one he got that promotion to captain and stuff. And Julie Madison, who we all know that was like the first love of Bruce Wayne's in the comics and stuff. So I really like the setting that like this started off with, of the setting that this takes place, because it also feels a little bit timeless too. It doesn't feel like this is 1940 Batman or anything, but it doesn't say that this is 2006 Batman either. So I'm rambling. So take it away, Micah. First thoughts, what you think about with Batman and the Monster Men.
I feel like I'm going to echo a lot of what
Okay.
you had to say. After reading it, just it does feel timeless, doesn't it? Besides like maybe a bat computer here and there,
Sure.
it feels like it could take place in any time, and it really feels almost. I got vibes like the animated series, because that series seems so
Yeah.
timeless when you watch
Yeah.
it, and the art style is. I mean, there's a lot of obvious like comparisons to Batman Year One. It takes place, it's part of the canon. It takes place not long after, but it still harkens back to a lot of the origins of Batman. I mean, the story itself is from that Batman One from 1940. It takes a lot of inspiration from it. What is that called? It was like Monsters of Hugo Strange or something like that, I believe. Oh yeah, the Giants of Dr. Hugo Strange off of Batman 1 in 1940. So it's obvious. I think what Matt Wagner was trying to do was trying to fit this in that little piece after Batman Year One, but also like, hey, like let's go back to Batman's roots and tell a little story from there, but also, bring characters forward like Hugo Strange and Julie Madison and all these other characters. And I think he did a really good job. And even now, like, I guess the comic is older. It's almost 20 years old. It doesn't feel 20 years old. And I just had a really good time with it. And I like the early Batman where he's still kind of making mistakes, but he's also kind of becoming more of a fully formed Batman, something you see in like Long Halloween. It even references things that's going to happen eventually in Long Halloween in the books. So I think it just fits in a really cool place in Batman's timeline and just tells a little story and fleshes it out. I really, really dug this comic.
So I like that you brought up the fact of Batman #1, the Giants of Hugo Strange, because I mean, it is basically like a retelling of that. And for anybody who's in the know, like I just said, Batman and the Mad Monk, that was also early Batman too. And it was just, it was retold, updated, however you want to kind of phrase that, through Wagner's vision, in which I think he does a great job. Of course, it's different between like what exactly goes down, but I mean the basic roots of the story of Hugo Strange and these basically creating these monsters through like a gene, like DNA, and then also there was in Detective Comics 471, The Strange Apparitions. I mean, Steve Englehart and Marshall Rogers even did a little nod when Bruce is locked in Strange's building and he goes and he escapes, but there's like some monster men in that too, which that's one of my favorite runs, one of my favorite stories too. So it's, the idea has been revisited before, but not to the extent here. And I think, I mean, they recently did it in the Rebirth era, and I didn't like that really at all. I thought it was kind of crap. I don't know if you read that. I'm not going to tell anybody not to, because I'm form your own opinion. But yeah, the monsters were like ugly, but so okay. This sounds really stupid. Here you see a little bit of like a resemblance of, oh, this is a human morphed, into something else, and those are like weird creatures, weird ugly creatures morphed into other weird ugly creatures, and it's just like I don't know, it was not that enjoyable. It's just so probably hopefully going to be a while before they attempt to do this kind of story again, because I feel out of all of them, Wagner's version is the best version of this story.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read that issue you were talking about, that story, but I do think Matt Wagner does such a good job combining the grounded elements that Frank Miller established, and also like kind of the goofy, silly stuff from very early Golden Age Batman, but making it believable. I think that's maybe, I haven't read that comic like you said, but maybe that's where the problem lies, where it doesn't seem believable. Like 1 second Batman is, getting beaten up by some thugs, and kind of being a badass. Next second, he's fighting these giant monsters, and it's believable. Like, not for a second, it doesn't seem like too out of place. Like, you understand Hugo Strange's obsession and how this guy could eventually create these things. You buy into it, and I was never really lost in the story at all on like
Yeah.
a believable level.
That was the thing. So, I mean, if you want to think of like Godzilla language, it's like Ghidorah, the three-headed monster Godzilla fights. It's like that was one of the monsters in that one and stuff. This is just large men that are ugly.
I mean, it's not any more or less believable than like Killer Croc or something, you know? It's
yeah, and I can go along with that. That's fine.
Yeah.
And he sets it because I feel like through the book itself, as you were kind of touching on the realistic factor. Yes, Wagner, I'm sure is like, I know this is a comic book. How real is this? But also treating it, I mean, similar to what Matt Reeves was saying behind the scenes stuff for the Batman of, I know that this can't happen, but we need to take it serious like it could. It is realistic, but we know it's not realistic. And I kind of feel that's the approach that Wagner has here. Because he like, I mean, it's something as simple as Bruce. I mean, one moment Bruce gets his ass kicked and he wakes up, or Julie wakes him up in his bed, and she opens the curtains and the lights shine on him, and he just looks like shit. And he has his arm in like a sling, and he's scratched up and bruised all over the place. And I mean, you know, it's not ignoring the fact of, as unrealistic as it is, of a guy to go out and kick ass every single night. Like, yeah, he got his ass kicked and he's, you know, he's suffering from it and stuff. It's like a humanistic point, you know?
Yeah, he makes mistakes in this. He does. I really like the Batmobile mistake. Like the first initial car, you don't really know it's the Batmobile, and he, you know, puts it in the way and lets that car, the guys or whatever stole the car, hit his like fake Batmobile. I think they called it the Night Car, which is, I think, is a really cool name. If you're not gonna call it the Batmobile, the Night Car, I think that sounds awesome. And how he leaves that behind, there's like license plates in it and all this other stuff. And I just, it's like I talked about earlier, it's a young Batman, but he's also, it's not year one Batman. He's right there at the cusp of becoming fully formed Batman. You mentioned Matt Reeves, and while I was reading this, did you not get like the Batman vibes from this? Like the intro of the Batman is like the villain doing something, and then Batman's introduction is him beating the crap out of thugs, and then instantly he goes to like a crime scene with like Gordon. I got like all of those vibes like from the intro to this. And it just, I don't know if Matt Reeves happened to look at this at all for like how he wanted to start the Batman, but if he did, it definitely makes sense to me of how the comic began. I got the Batman vibes, but also I've watched the Batman like 10 million times in the last few months, so maybe I just see a little bit of the Batman and everything. But yeah,
I'll say I like honestly did with the car part.
Yeah.
So as you'd said with, you know, the Night Car,
awesome.
That coming out, and how, I mean, a lot of only nerds are really complaining about how the Batmobile and the Batman doesn't look like a Batmobile. I love the damn car, but I think with the color of Gotham in those pages, and then the car itself, that made me think of the Batman. But I didn't really think too much, but now I will, because you said it. So thanks. I'll read this again and be like, oh my gosh, this is like the Batman. As much as it's like continuity, as we said it, I mean, post year one, before The Man Who Laughs. So, I mean, we get in name mention the Roman, but Maroni is the mob player here. And he's integral, important to the story. I mean, on the villainous side, everything kind of is affected because of him. It revolves around him, because between Hugo Strange is in debt to him. Oh my gosh,
Norman's in debt to him. Yeah.
Norman Madison, he's in debt to him too. And it's kind of like all this stuff it's a domino effect because of interaction with Maroni, which everything comes to a head because of that. We're both sides of this. I like that, because I do love the stories of the Batman against the mob, Batman versus the mob, but I love Batman's villains. And this doesn't have, I don't know if you'd argue now that Hugo Strange is an A-lister or not. because I think just like instantly A-list Batman villains, you get, Joker, Riddler, Catwoman, Penguin, Two-Face. I think those are the first five that everybody would name, with arguments to be made for Scarecrow and Hugo Strange and Ra's al Ghul. But I like that the mob's included just enough in this story, but not too much. It leaves a little bit of fun Batman stuff to do. Story continues to move. The pacing is perfect and nothing really bogs it down.
Yeah, I do like not necessarily the mob focus, but it being like kind of the center focus of the story. Like you did mention like the character tethers in this book, and every character serves a purpose in this book. Like everyone's tied to someone. Either Batman has a relationship with them or Bruce Wayne has a relationship with them. And I do like how it all comes to a head in issue 6 at Falcone's Manor, which we never even saw him. We don't even know where exactly he is, which is cool because we know where, eventually the story goes in the Long Halloween and other stories. But I just really like the character tethers, how they all like have something, they're all connected in some way. And I don't know how I'm bringing Batman Forever into this, but I just love when Batman
why not
when Batman's not a simp. And in this book, Batman is certainly not a simp. I love when Batman is just like, yeah, I have a love interest, but it's not. But I do like how it's not fake. Like he's not just using her as like just to like, oh, hey, look at me, I'm a billionaire playboy. No, he actually has a genuine interest for her. And isn't this Bruce Wayne and Batman a lot more hopeful than what you mostly see? He doesn't seem that grim about things. Like when he's talking to his parents, he talks about how, I actually have a girlfriend now, and I think you guys would really love her. And he talks about how he's so close to cracking Maroni, and this is like the domino, like that'll get everything going. So he's already he's very optimistic. He's looking almost as if like, I could finish this soon, perhaps. It seems like maybe at the beginning of the issue. So I just talking about the character tethers and just overall interpretations of characters. I really enjoyed it. I like how I love a dark, emo Batman. I'm talking about the Batman. He's just super dark and depressed, but I don't mind like upbeat, more optimistic Batman looking forward to maybe potentially putting up the mantle someday. And I feel like this is the kind of mindset Batman is in at this point in time, because he's looking at Julie as a genuine love interest, not just, a puppet to show everyone like, oh, I'm a playboy. I'm not actually dressing up as a bat and I'd beat people to a pulp.
So that I think makes me think Batman the Animated Series as well. So which maybe it's Mask of the Phantasm. Or no, it's an episode. I can't think of what episode of the series where, Bruce goes to some party and, the girls are all like, oh, Bruce. I think somebody makes kind of a comment about him, but it's like we only hear other people say he's got a reputation. We don't see anything. Like we don't see the basis of that. And so we hear, in Norman Madison even says it when Bruce ends up at the one party here, like he's got that reputation, sort of deal, but we don't see it. We just get, again, it's somebody else saying that. And then Julie Madison was like Bruce Wayne's first love in the comics.
Yeah.
And I feel like she's always forgotten because Selena's always mentioned, Talia's always mentioned, and then you'll get oh my gosh, I had it.
Vicky Vale's in there a lot.
Vicky's in there, mostly just because of, the '89 movie. They haven't done much with. They haven't done much with her. Oh, Silver St. Cloud, who was, only 6 issues in Detective Comics, before the miniseries Dark Detective and some others. So I kind of feel like Julie Madison's she's just always kind of forgotten. And in the early comics, she was an actress, and here he makes her a law student, and she's not a damsel in distress. She's not an idiot, she's up there, and Norman, like her intelligence is up there, and she's like, she can stand her ground. And I think Norman Madison even says it at one point of kind of like, if there's anybody that can basically rope Bruce in, it's you. Bruce says at one point, I don't know if he just writes it to himself in the diary or if he tells Alfred of like, Julie's way too smart for this. She's not, like, I can't dupe her. I can't fool her. Like when she surprises him by waking him up in his bedroom and stuff. And I think that might even be the scene where he's like, I got to come up with something quick on what really happened to me. And she even questions and doubles down on his excuse, even of like, wait, what? I really just like how she gets respect and she's actually a good character, because that could be something too, as us as readers could be like, oh my gosh, like gag me with this love interest, if we don't like the character. But I think she's a legacy character, but she's written really well. She serves a purpose. She too is linked into this stuff by way of her father.
Yeah.
And she's Bruce's love interest.
Yep.
I like, she's useful to the story. And I think that's kind of what it all comes down to. And so it's like, in the end, it's cool that it becomes Matt Wagner does his homework and it's Julie Madison. So I wish there were more stories with her. I mean, the follow-up to this, obviously she's in that one, but, and I know that I think Scott Snyder did it in New 52 there towards the end, but I just feel like they also didn't do a whole lot with it either. So I like that. This is the Julie Madison story.
I think the best decision that Matt Wagner made was when he brought Julie Madison forward, was changing her profession from an actress to a lawyer, because I think that just adds so much more just weight to her character, because not only is she's going to eventually be involved in the criminal realm in some way. I think that's what made Rachel, I keep comparing to movies, that's what made Rachel's character so unique in The Dark Knight, was her working in the DA office, and obviously her relationship with Harvey Dent. But
there's like a credibility factor that comes with that title, because hey, maybe you don't like lawyers, but lawyers aren't dumb. Like they're pretty smart. So that at least instantly, if somebody's a lawyer, gives a little bit of credibility of, okay, we're dealing with somebody who is smart here.
Yeah, and it's like when Bruce and Julie are together, or whatever, if someone he's dating is a lawyer, like when they're together, we're together, but when we're away, we're both trying to put criminals behind bars, but we have completely different methods. And then obviously the females are going to be like, oh, is he leading a double life? Oh, is he seeing another woman? No, honestly, I dress up as a bat and go out at night. But I do like her character a lot. She's not just a damsel in distress. I did like that in the story, how she didn't just get captured at some point or anything. Like, no, she's intelligent. She snuck her way into Wayne Manor. She knew that she memorized the code from when Bruce used it last time, and that's how Bruce essentially almost got caught being Batman. But I do like her character. And that's another cool thing. He didn't have to bring her forward, I don't think. Like, because her father is like, I'm pretty sure that's his first introduction, right? Like, he's never been in the comics before.
I don't know of any other story of Norman Madison that doesn't. I haven't. Yeah. Full disclosure, I haven't read every single Batman comic book. But I don't think I've.
Yeah, because I don't think it would have detracted or really added anything if she was just a new character as well. But I do think it's cool how he brought the Hugo Strange Monster Men story forward. He also decided, hey, like, there's this first Batman love interest, I'm gonna bring her forward. And I was thinking, like, isn't it weird how, like, it almost seems like most of the most important comic book characters have their like set love interest. Spider-Man, Mary Jane. I know Gwen Stacy's in there as well, but it's mostly Mary Jane. Superman, Lois Lane. And it's just like Batman has whoever, it doesn't matter.
Julie, Vicky, Selena, Talia, Silver. He's got 5. Now, some people could argue of like, no, it's Selena. I think because Selena, it's just been so current for the how many years now, 6 years that it's been Bruce and Selena, that people would say, oh, that's his number one, which, hey, you can make a case for that. Sure. Others could say Talia because hello, they had a kid. But I mean, you speak of first, I mean, you got Julie and Vicky. So it's, I don't know. Bruce Wayne, he's.
Damn, Batman, just dance with the one dance with the girl, bro. Jesus.
Just choose one. Stop leaving. You know what? He is a playboy.
He is. Unironically is. He says he's not, but he actually is.
We all want to say that he's not, but no, just look at that. 5 off the top of your head. So we talked about Julie. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say with Sal Maroni. Obviously, this is pre Harvey Dent. We know that he is basically works for Falcone, which you read The Long Halloween, you kind of know that Falcone's number one. Maroni is an he's a servant, if you will. But I think like okay, Bruce is the main character, Bruce Batman. And then I don't know if you'd say Julie would be next on the bill or Hugo Strange. This characterization of Hugo Strange, it's funny because it is different than what a lot of us think of now, but also it definitely fits with the character of Hugo Strange. So he's a scientist. At the end of this book, where we end up with, I think he becomes a little bit more in line to, like I was saying, the strange apparitions. That's what I think of at the end of this book, where he's like analyzing the psychosis of Batman and stuff. And that's what he does in Strange Apparitions. And that's what he does in Batman Prey, and so we end up where we know him. But prior to that, I mean, he's a mad scientist playing with DNA. I don't know which version of him I prefer, because he had plenty to do here, and his motivations, I mean, we don't get a deep explanation for why he's up to what he's up to, do we?
I mean, the only thing I guess we get is he's just obsessed with human beings reaching their full potential. And I think it's obviously he's super insecure about the fact that he's the almost complete opposite of that. He's reached his maximum level and he's like, what, 5? He's like 5'5". No offense to you short guys out there or anything, but I do like the character swap. Like when he's introduced, you think it's Bruce because it's just a dark silhouette. And then this is Hugo. So it kind of shows like they're almost similar in a way, that they have very similar mindsets in a way. But I do like, I mean, what we know Hugo Strange for is being obsessed with just the mental state and psychosis of Batman. And we get to see that Hugo Strange who's obsessed with just perfecting the perfect human. And eventually that becomes Batman, because he thinks Batman is that perfect specimen. So I think it's really interesting to see him, and intriguing to see him just obsessed with human beings in general and creating a perfect monster, a perfect human, or just messing with DNA. And eventually when he encounters Batman for the first time, he like almost essentially falls in love. He's head over heels for Batman, and just how powerful he is. And he's just at peak human condition.
Because that fits into what you just said of like his obsession with peak human condition. So when he's watching Batman perform, it's total like, oh my God, look at this. This is the height of human I don't know, like human capabilities. Like
he even
potential.
like puts on the cape and like wears it around for a second in one of the panels. Whenever Batman finally escapes from the Monster Man initially, he was just so impressed that he didn't even care that Batman escaped. He was actually happy.
And then it's interesting how, I mean, it keeps the story going, like moving along, that the Batman Monster Man confrontation happens halfway through the book. Because if you saved it until the very end, it's kind of like, okay, it's Batman, let's get this going. So then you have the confrontation in the middle of the story. You got to do something different when they face off again. And they get Batman's DNA. And then Sanjay, his assistant, Hugo's assistant, it's like his brother's body that they're next performing with, and they use Batman's DNA. That's pretty cool and trippy. Messed up. I can't.
It's another character tether right there. It seems like even like the Monster Men have like an importance. Like it's Sanjay's brother, and there's a moment that they shared together at the end when he passes. That's interesting. That adds another depth to the novel.
And that's what I'm trying to find. I forget his name, because
it's like it starts with an R, I believe. I can't remember what it is, but it is just really intriguing. I do love that. As soon as Hugo's like, "Oh, we have Batman's DNA," I'm like, "Oh, okay, I know what's gonna happen next."
Rajan, Rajan.
Okay.
Rajan. I don't know. Go ahead. Carry on.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say the story is kind of predictable in a way, but not in a bad way. It's so enjoyable. It's like I talked about, like a Batman animated series episode. You kind of know where it's going, but it's you want to continue to read it and watch it, see what happens, even though you kind of mostly know what's gonna happen in a bad way. But I really do. What do they call the Bruce Wayne Batman, the Prince of the Monster Man, right? I love that name.
Damn it. I don't remember.
Yeah, I believe Hugo called him the Prince of the Monster Men, which is
Yes.
awesome. And he looked different. He looked more human in a way. He looked less monster, and he was obviously the most powerful.
Mhm.
And I love how Maroney and that goon go up to Falcone's rooftop to stow away on the helicopter, and like, you don't like, all right, get in the helicopter and fly. He's like, I don't know how to fly that thing. He's like, what?
Yeah.
This was your idea. What do you mean you don't know how to fly it?
And
That's
that's,
awesome.
I mean, yeah, that's perfect. And I mean, I agree with you in the fact that you kind of know where it's headed, but then you also like, then you're still fully surprised. It's a way to give you, so there's all these Maroney goons that are just cannon fodder. And it's like, well,
Oh,
we need the
yeah.
monster men to just tear some shit up. So they do. And they're ripping these guys apart, and it's a massacre. And it's
Literally.
great. It's kind of what we
Literally.
want to see.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, the Sanjay's brother, I
Mhm.
mean, you kind of, it's kind of crazy because I don't fully hate Hugo Strange here. So you read him in Strange Apparitions, like you kind of hate the bastard. You read him in Batman Prey, and you kind of hate the bastard. But I don't fully hate him here because he's not. It's almost like Batman broke into his lab
Mhm.
and then ended up in the pit with the Monster Men.
Yeah.
Hugo didn't seek him out and try. So I think that works so well with the continuity here in the sense of, yeah, where it ends up, then you can see him becoming the bastard that we read about in other stories. But here I don't feel, I don't know, I don't feel the hatred for the guy, and I kind of feel bad for his assistant,
Yeah.
Sanjay. And you feel for the guy as his brother just gets blasted by all those goons. And then, I mean, just a couple pages later, then he gets blasted in the head by one of the goons, in which then that causes, Hugo to take out that goon. It's kind of like, oh man, that kind of sucks. He was a loyal assistant.
Batman did kind of interject himself in this entire conflict, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, granted, because people are getting killed, but you don't, this sounds very terrible, but I mean, it's the one man and his girl being shitty to Hugo.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out that Hugo got his revenge, and you're kind of like, well, I'm not entirely sympathetic here to those people. Like, you are assholes. Like, don't be a bully, kids, or you might get eaten and ripped apart by monster men.
I mean, Maroney did the same thing too. Maroney started screwing him over, and he took his methods to get revenge on him as well. It just seems like Hugo, doesn't like getting bullied. He takes that very, very seriously. He writes your name on sticky notes and puts them on his mirror. And every morning when he wakes up and washes his face and brushes his teeth, he remembers you.
Today it's Maroney.
How did you feel about the not to just take over the show, but how did you feel about the Batmobile reveal? I dug it, man. I like this look of the Batmobile.
Holy shit. Love that Batmobile.
I think it looks awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I know that, I don't know the exact quote to Alfred, but how he kind of basically they tease it. That he's got, we lost the car, but he teases that we're working on something else. And you freaking know, you're like, oh hell, that's the Batmobile. And then that image where, let's see, I'm trying to find it. I'm looking for it.
Somewhere in issue 6.
Well, it's in the cave of Alfred and Batman. Yeah, there we go. Page 110. And yeah, I love that page turner of, let's see. So it says that place is a veritable fortress, and you see that they're going down steps in the Batcave.
Mm-hmm.
And then you turn the page in that cool 2-page half spread, and there's the Batmobile, which I think looks cool as hell. And then it looks like almost a prototype Batwings, or maybe it is an early version he's used, as well as the Bat, like the Bat bike, the Bat cycle, whatever. I think that panel is just so freaking cool. And I totally dig the Batmobile. And then like you kind of said, and then when it crashes through the gates, like you see it coming, they're teasing that it's coming by the Hugo and Sanjay at the gates, and a light's coming behind them, and then Sanjay's kind of got the oh shit eyes.
Mm-hmm.
As you
that Batmobile looks timeless to me. I think that's one of the most timeless aspects of the book is that Batmobile. Really dig it.
Yeah, I mean, in the one panel, I mean, it looks like it's maybe a little short, but also like, I don't know if that's your complaint, then okay, cool. I don't know. I like this Batmobile a lot, and we don't get a whole lot of action. I can't remember Batman and the Mad Monk, how much it's in that, if at all. It's been a while since I've read that one too. But yeah, this is I mean, they love making toys and Hot Wheels and stuff with Batmobiles. Let's get this one. The
It does seem the story is
Batmobile.
kind of overlooked. And I mean, you're way more into the, I don't know, Batman comic book community than I am. So does this story seems like perhaps it's overlooked and people kind of forget about it? It's, you know, essentially, I mean, it fits in between year one and The Man Who Laughs, correct?
People reading comics definitely, like, I don't know anybody who doesn't like this story. Comic book readers that I've come across, they are definitely aware of Batman and the Monster Men and think it's a damn good story. But everybody does just stick to, when you hear about the best and the favorites and stuff, you know, they go to what you expect of Dark Knight Returns, Year One, The Long Halloween, Hush. That's just kind of where people go to right away. So it's crazy because it's, I don't know, for how good it is, it's beloved, but yeah, I don't think it's reached that upper echelon level of Batman stories. The most recent to reach that, I think, is Court of Owls, like that. And I'd argue White Knight maybe have to give a little bit more time, and maybe people will throw Three Jokers up there.
Three Jokers is fantastic.
But yeah, for some reason, that's the thing. That's a weird answer just from my perspective, and I'd love to hear anybody's opinions on what they think. Just my perspective is that it's not forgotten, it is beloved, it's just not in that top conversation for some reason.
I would agree to that. I think it's a damn good Batman story. It doesn't do anything to evolve the character or push it into new areas or heights. It just takes
Controversial.
Yeah, or anything controversial. It's just a good Batman story. I mean, I think that's good enough. I mean, I think that's more than enough.
So, let's talk about Matt Wagner's art. So one thing that I'm not happy about with this trade paperback,
okay,
is that it doesn't include all of the covers.
Oh, the covers are amazing. I was going to bring that up when we finally talked about the art. I love all of the covers.
There's
they'd make amazing posters.
Yeah. And I mean, there's the halfway point. I don't know which cover that would be for. I don't know if it'd be the cover for issue 3 or 4, but of the Monster Men, one of their hands has his cape and it's holding him up.
Yes, that's issue
like
4. Yeah,
okay.
I believe that's issue 4.
That's the only other cover aside from, I mean, the book's cover, which is, I think, issue number 1. That's it. So it wasn't until years later when I was like, maybe I would just want to be a collector and try and get these individual issues, that I saw, holy shit, look at these freaking covers. Oh my God.
They're beautiful.
Why are they not in the trade paperback? Or why are they not in the back as extras? You know, because
yeah,
God damn, these covers are freaking awesome. And it's definitely, I mean, the Under the Hood story, like those Matt Wagner covers, there's like a painted aspect to them that I think really makes them stand out.
Yes.
So yeah, that to me is the biggest takeaway of, as far as like the looks go here, are that the covers are freaking A+ covers. And I think even better for the Mad Monk story, because that deals with almost like a goth kind of sensibility, you know, and the amazing nod to the, oh man, I can't think of which Batman cover it is, of Batman in the sky over the castle. Like his Wagner's version of that cover, his nod to that cover is incredible.
It is. Yeah.
But yeah, sticking like to these, I love all these covers. And so that's, you know what, I bet if you talk, I'm going to go grab the Matt Wagner book and see if they're in that. I kind of
Yeah, I got you. I mean, out of all of these issues, I could not find which one was my favorite each time I got to the next issue. I mean, issue 1 is the one most people are probably most familiar with, the brown background with Batman standing in the front, which is very traditional. I love it. But the one you talked about, issue 4, with just the giant hand of one of the Monster Men holding Batman, and the white background looks beautiful. But I think probably my favorite overall is issue 5 with Batman. He's holding Julie in his arms, which doesn't, when he's like bringing her back, I guess, to Wayne Manor. I just think it looks awesome. It has this weird, like, mystical vintage, like straight out of 1940s vibe. I love
like
the
1940s
art style.
horror. Yeah, with like the fog, and he's out in the I don't know, out in the fields, like on his way back.
It is
cross
very
countryside or something like that.
Very early horror.
I don't have my Matt Wagner book here. Damn it! I just looked at my bat shelf and I didn't have it out yet.
One of the Mad Monk covers, just Batman's like hand reaching up. From what I remember, I want to say, I just remember that being iconic. I think that's from Mad Monk, but Matt Wagner just it doesn't. I don't know what it's from, but overall, Matt Wagner did. I think all of the issue covers are A+, like super iconic. I love them.
Issue 2 of the Mad Monk is his hand coming out of just like blood, nothing but blood.
It tells so much with nothing. It just grabs you instantly. I love the issues. Like when, I wish. I mean, it is kind of upsetting that the issue covers aren't on there. It'd be cool to turn the page, and then you just see those issues. You're like, oh yeah, I gotta dive right into this.
So good, it's so good. And that's another thing where it's like, guys, why didn't you reprint this and include all that? I'll have to go. Now it's gonna bug me. When I go look at track down my book, my Matt Wagner book. But we gushed about the covers, but I mean, the interior art is also cool.
Yes.
It's still good in the book.
It is.
I think it definitely, Wagner has a style that you just kind of know that's Matt Wagner. I guess is that an artist's goal? Do they want their work to be recognizable as theirs? It doesn't look like anybody else's. It definitely, I'd say he has the only artists that I can see some parts resemble a little bit are like Darwin Cook. I think he's got a little shot of Darwin Cook in some of his art. But otherwise he's totally original. His work is I don't know, on an island.
No, I agree. I definitely think there's elements of Darwin Cook, but there's only so many ways to draw Batman. But it does. The more you familiarize yourself with Matt Wagner's style, it's easier to see. It has this, I think, you said timeless multiple times. I think Matt Wagner's style is timeless. It's I get animated series vibes. I get very early nights, like the first issue 1939 Batman vibes with some of the art style. Like some of the pictures of Batman that the GCPT have drawn up look exactly like the first appearance of Batman, with like the curved ears. And it is very dark and serious, but also it has elements of lightheartedness. And I think Matt Wagner does a really good job of ending like each little parts of the stories at the bottom or at the very complete of the page. So when you turn to the next page, it's already, okay, another character. It feels like each page feels complete. It didn't seem like there was much like bleed through of a story from page to page, or if it does continue, it ends at the bottom. So when you turn that next page, it's something completely new. I think the pages themselves and the panels are paced and placed very elegantly and purposeful.
Well done. So observant.
I do like that, because I do like when comics, you're swapping from multiple characters, and I do like how each character, we kind of always know what their thoughts are. Everyone's monologuing, which adds more depth to each character. But I do like it when each page feels complete. So when I turn that next page, okay, back to Batman.
Yeah.
Okay, back to Hugo Strange. It feels just, the pacing is so well done.
The pacing's really good because it isn't. I know I just feel like you got to have a good balance of dialogue and just imagery. And there's never a page that you're turned to where you're like, oh, there's a lot of dialogue to get through on this one. And it's not that I don't want to read words, or anything like that. But
yeah,
I mean, that I think I mentioned on my Dark Knight Returns episode with Robert Reinecke, sometimes that it does feel like it gets bogged down because feels like, okay, here's a page with a lot of talking heads. You turn the page, oh, here's a lot more dialogue followed by a lot more dialogue. It's like, okay, let's get it moving here. Let's keep going. I think Wagner has really great pacing with that, of like the action and even the smaller moments, the little moments. There's something to say when, I mean, Bruce wakes up and Julie's in bed and you're really like, oh, how are you going to get out of this one, Bruce? Sort of deal. So it's just even a character, a scene that's just about characters. He found a way to make that really interesting. With art, with dialogue, all that stuff. So is there any part of Batman and the Monster Men that we haven't talked about that you want to bring up, mention, even just a little thought?
I don't think so. I think we've covered everything that I just wanted to talk about. I can't gush enough about it. I'm so glad that you invited me on the show to read this again, because it just brings up some nostalgia for me. I mean, it was the first Batman comic that I remember reading. I'm sure I read some others, but it's the first I remember reading and retaining some of it, so rereading it again, it brings back all the memories. So that was just a fun experience. But I love Matt Wagner's style. I love him bringing back a lot of the original elements from the first issue of Batman, like Julie Madison and Hugo Strange in that story, and the art style, but also, also being kind of a sequel in a way to Batman Year One, and combining some of those elements. I think it was a tall task for Matt Wagner to take on. And not only is this guy writing the story, but he's drawing it. I mean, like, how much more could you ask someone to do? Like, he's doing essentially everything. It's really impressive. I really respect Matt Wagner's choice with this story, and I think he knocked it out of the park, in my opinion.
So I'm mistaken. I need to correct myself here.
Okay.
Does include all of the covers.
Oh, okay.
Because I mean, the front cover is issue 1. You open it up, and on like the title page, that's the cover to issue 6.
6, yeah.
You turn the page again, and it's got I think 2, 3, and 5.
Yep, that's exactly it.
And then the halfway point is issue number 4's cover. So it's just in a really different way than how.
That's weird, isn't it? Normally it's like
at
the beginning of each issue, right?
I mean, now they print everything and they break it, like they break it up, and so that when each issue starts and ends and everything. Or they do now the whole thing, because there's so many variants for stuff, that the back of the book is all the variants. So yeah, it's just kind of, I don't know, whoever came up with this, I'd give you like a C on printing. Should have done better. But all right, let's get to some questions then.
Okay.
For you, Micah Ramey.
Wow.
What was your favorite part of Batman and the Monster Men?
My favorite part of Batman and the Monster Man. My favorite part is the art style, for sure. The timeless art style. Are you talking about story
like
moment?
Yeah,
scene?
Like what's your favorite scene?
Favorite scene in the book? Off the top, I think my favorite scene in the book, the first one that comes to my head, is Batman learning from his first initial fight with the Monster Man, and he brings that gadget that throws, and he throws on those two monsters, and it pulls them together, and they tear themselves apart. And when Norman comes downstairs, and the panel just shows them like literally they have ripped each other apart. I thought that was super cool, seeing a Batman learn from his mistakes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mine is probably Batman's first scene. Him at the docks, when he takes out the dudes, because you have the one guy that's tied up, and he's kind of getting tortured for his info, and you don't see exactly what's happening, but you know that they're like burning his eye with that cigarette. And then you have Batman, he's on one of the beams overseeing it, and then when he comes down, and you see that the guy that, and he's got one working eye now, and he's just kind of like, he's got this look. And then the next page is the 4 guys that were torturing him, and they're like, what? And Batman I mean, it's just coming down on them, and it's like, hell yeah,
Yep.
that's the mother effing Batman.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good moments in this, but I really like that as like the intro to him. How about favorite panel?
Favorite panel is certainly when Batman sneaks into, there's so many people sneaking into other people's bedrooms in this book. Now you think about it, was Batman sneaks into Maroni's room and he's whispering to him, and that panel of Batman just lifting up his cape and Maroni shitting his pants, I think is badass. And I love the back window glass. You can see it's like red out there of the city of Gotham City. I think it looks pretty sick.
Nice. Yeah, good call. I love the panel from the scene that I just talked about of Batman behind those four guys coming down. I like the nod. It's on page 64. So when he's on the roof outside of Hugo's warehouse, it's definitely a nod to like one of those first images of Batman, clear back from like Detective 27.
Yeah.
That's a cool nod. When he shows up at that poker place and it's a massacre.
That was probably my other one too.
All that is great, but it's the Batmobile in the Batcave. That's my favorite. Love the coloring, love him having fun with the little Batwing thing behind and the Bat Cycle and stuff. I freaking love that.
The Batwing or Bat Glider, whatever it is, looks
Bat
sick.
Glider, yeah, there you go. That sounds better than that's not the Batwing, Bat Glider. Yeah, nice. Like I don't think that's what was used in year one. But maybe that's Wagner thinking, yeah, it's what they used in year one.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. True.
Why not? Would you like to see this adapted in animation?
I mean, why not?
Okay, why not? All right, and
you could just call it Dark Moon Rising and make this part 1, and then do Mad Monk, make that part 2. That's what I would do.
That's exactly what I was going to say too. I'd want it to be a movie. I think because this plays as one story, that you totally do Batman Dark Moon Rising part 1, and it's Batman and the Monster Man, and then part 2 Mad Monk. Why the hell not? That'd be great. It would be awesome, and really play with like you just said with that one cover feeling 1940s. I don't know, play with that. Play like this could be you trying to return to the roots of the animated series without completely doing the animated series, Maybe that's what they're going for with the upcoming Caped Crusader animated series. It's like a style kind of like this. But I totally agree that a movie, 2-part movie, bada bing, bada boom.
I mean, it works so well for the Long Halloween, which isn't necessarily, obviously a 2-part story originally. I mean, this is already kind of done for you, like just Monster Man part 1, Mad Monk part 2. And I would love to see, with the success of the Long Halloween, I would like to see this. I would like to see them do it, but do it a little differently. Make it a little bit, make it its own thing. Don't just control.
Well, you're going to bring whoever gives part 1 a shot. They're coming back for part 2, even if they don't like part 1 all that much. Like, well, I got to see how it wraps up.
True.
Like you'd have them hooked. They'd come back for more. And it's, it's a beloved story. So, Micah, do you have any other comments? Anything at all about? How about just what are your final thoughts on Batman and the Monster Man?
Go read Batman and the Monster Man. Go read it.
That's your final thoughts.
Go read it. I think it's a great book for. I guess there is some pretty dark and grotesque stuff in here, but if my dad can give it to me when I'm 9 years old, why can't you fathers out there give it to your younger kid? I don't know, maybe 10 and above. Read it, but it's a good story. It's nothing too deep, nothing too complex. It doesn't innovate or change or do anything crazy with the Batman character. It's Batman. It's combining a lot of what makes Batman great from all ages, from the very, very beginning, like 1940s, into the 80s with what Frank Miller did. It combines a lot of these elements together, and I think it makes a Batman story relatable to a fan of any era of Batman, which is awesome. So I would say it's a great story. Go read it. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
Nice.
Timeless.
Repeats, like cosign everything that you said. I'd say I'd borderline like love this story. I think it's great. It's a lot of fun. Like you said, it kind of does. it can feel a little bit dark, but also it's in that weird way. It's a fun kind of violent, you know, but it's also, it takes itself seriously, but not too seriously. And it's fun to fit into the time period that it does, of as far as like in Batman's history of post year one, but still very, very early on. And yeah, the covers are awesome. The art is great. If you haven't read this for some reason, DC Universe, or like Micah even said, just buy it digitally. It's cheap enough. It costs you $12 plus tax to just buy the issues digitally if you don't want to just go check it out on DC Universe Infinite. So highly recommended. Read it again or read it for the first time, Batman and the Monster Man. Now, really quick, before I let you go, Micah, I was having trouble trying to think of a Batman poll question concerning this book, but I think I got something.
Okay.
It's not a cop-out, but I've told Peter Vera, that guy we just we talked all about at the beginning of this episode. I come up with questions hoping and honestly thinking this might be a close, like the results may be close. And I suck at that because it never is. It always surprises me that it's like 85% voted one way, 15% voted this way. So we'll see how this one turns out. But where would you rank Batman and the Monster Men on best Batman stories? Top 5, top 10, top 15, or top 20? Would you be able to answer that right now?
I feel like most people are probably going to say top 20. I would put in the top 20, or maybe even out of the 20, honestly.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that's in the gate, like how good this book is. I'm saying that there's just that many amazing Batman stories. But if someone, you know what, this is a story where I would feel like if someone had a, you know, attachment to it, like I do, would put it in like a top 10. I could see myself certainly putting it in my top 10. But
I will answer it as,
I think top 20.
I'll vote it. I'll put top 15. I know it's not top 10 because I did a top 10 episode and it was not on there. If we expanded it to a top 15, this definitely would have been in my top 15. I just don't know where. 11 or 15, I don't know. But it had been in my top 15. So yeah, go to the Batman Book Club Twitter at the Batman BC, and weigh in on the poll on which one you'd put it, or if it, I mean, you say no, I made a list, it's number 57. You can put that in the comments, whatever you want. So head there and cast your vote, voice your concern about this story. So Micah, thank you for coming back to the Batman Book Club.
Ryan, thank you so much for having me, man. It really is an honor.
Absolutely.
I love the show. It's awesome.
You need to stop saying this is an honor, because
it is. That's how I feel. You want me to lie to you? I'm trying to be honest on this show, man. It's an honor. I love the show. It's awesome.
Well, I appreciate that. You'll come back again because I'll demand it.
Okay.
Glad to have you back this time. Why don't you go ahead and plug away with whatever you want. Tell the good people where to follow your thoughts and ramblings and such.
Okay, well, I have my main YouTube channel on YouTube, obviously.
Hey, all right.
Literally just type in Ramey Review. It's that simple. I used to have another name, but I got tired of people asking me how do you spell that? How do you pronounce that? How do you say that shit? And I'm like, okay, Ramey Review. Everyone knows Bill Ramey. I think they'll be very familiar with just Ramey Review. So yeah, that's on Twitter, or that's on YouTube. I have a Twitter as well if you want to follow that. I don't know why you would want to do that, but you can. But yeah, Batman Book Club. If you're here and you haven't followed the Batman Book Club, what are you doing with your life? Like you chose this episode to listen to out of all the other hundreds of episodes with people who know way more about Batman than me. So yes, if you made it this far, please, subscribe to the Batman Book Club on YouTube, all other podcast platforms, and follow them on Twitter.
You have a good amount of fans yourself, so don't short yourself, because you expand, you do movies, you do books. I was on your show for talking about the Batman prequel book. You do games, break down games and stuff too. So yeah, Ramey does it all. Ramey's reviews.
Talking too much, honestly.
Do it. No, not enough. You can follow this show on Twitter and Instagram at the Batman BC for upcoming episodes, new episode drops. Like I said just a couple minutes ago, the Batman polls. Subscribe to the YouTube channel on the Batman Book Club because Peter Vera and I have started the road to no man's land. So go listen to us talk about the first of 8 parts of that series on the YouTube channel. If you want to support the show, there's a variety of ways you can do that. Like I said at the top of the show, patreon.com/the Batman BC. If you want to support the show through TeePublic, where you can get some t-shirts, hoodies, notebooks, stickers, onesies for your little one, you can do that at tpublic.com. But if you want to support the show and you don't want to spend any money at all, it's 100% a-okay. You can do it by rating and reviewing the show wherever you listen to it: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google, iHeartRadio, wherever. Just go to the rate and review page. The more reviews it gets, the more it helps spread the word. And as we all know, the word is panic. So for Deathstroke himself, Micah Ramey, I am Ryan Lauer. And until next time, keep your panic.